So in this demo, we will see how we can tackle an interesting problem, creating a list of authors in one go. We can't just post a list of authors to API/authors as we've done before, as how we name the URI implies that one author will be posted. So what can we do? Well, this is one of the reasons it's so important to realize that there doesn't have to be a direct mapping between the entities in the backend store and your outer facing contract. It's not because the authors resource maps to the authors in our database that other resources cannot have an effect on the same database table. So, what does all of this mean and what should we do then? Well, we design a new resource, an author collections resource. That requires a request body that's an array of author representations, and it will result in a list of authors being added to the database. So, to solve issues like these and other issues you might encounter, it's important to start thinking in resources and don't think about the underlying data store too much anymore. Anyway, let's switch to Visual Studio. As we're working on a new resource, I prefer to separate it out into its own controller. It's not a requirement, but it does keep our code a bit cleaner. So let's add a new class, Author Collections Controller. Just as with our other controllers, we ensure it derives from controller base and is annotated with the API controller attribute. Let me import the necessary namespaces for this. There's nothing new to see here. We inject the repository and a mapper through constructor injection. We will need both. Then let's add an action, create author collection. We decorate it with an HTTP post attribute as we're going to be creating such a collection. This time though, the parameter coming from the request body is an IEnumerable of author for creation DTO instead of a single author for creation DTO. Let me import the course library.api.models namespace for that so that it resolves. In the response, we want to see the author collection we just created represented as a list of author DTOs. We map the incoming collection to an IEnumerable of author entities. For that, I need to import the course library.api.entities namespace. After that, we can add them to our data store via the repository. This piece of code doesn't yet result in different SQL statements being executed. We're only adding them on the context. Nothing is sent to the database yet. In other words, it's okay to add them one by one. It's only when save async is executed that these will be stored in the database in one go. And that should already be it as far as adding all these authors is concerned. But what should we return? Well, as this is a post, it warrants a 201 created status code. So we should return that, which we can do via the created@routehelper method. And here's the tricky part. We should include the URI where we can get this collection in the location header. So we need a get to get this author collection. But how do we do that then? If we're adding the authors to the author table via our data store, we don't have a direct key for an author collection. The key is a combination of a set of author IDs. The separation between the outer-facing contract and the data store is becoming even more clear. For now, let's just return an OK so we can check out if creating a list of authors already works. Let's build and run this. We're back in Postman. The request you see on screen here will post 2 authors, 1 author collection, to our author collections resource. We get back a 200 OK, so it seems like the request worked out. let's get the authors. And indeed, our two newly created authors are in this list. But we actually want the response status code to be 201, and we also want a location header. That means we need to tackle another issue, working with array keys. And while we're at it, we'll cover composite keys as well. Let's check that out in the next demo.